Hi guys, Borgio here with a guide for Final Fantasy XIV. With the release of the expansion Stormblood, I've seen an increase in the number of newer players. So now seems like the best time to put together something to help out any new people coming into Final Fantasy XIV, as there is a lot to get your head around. This is the first part in my new player guide series to Final Fantasy XIV. Firstly though, a quick heads up, this guide is aimed at basically completely new players, so anybody who's been playing for a while may not require this guide at all, and that's fine. There may be one or two things you take away from it, in which case great, but obviously this is not aimed at any veterans that have any sort of semblance of grasp of the game. It's aimed at the new players. So let's get started. When you first log in guys, I'm going to talk about data centers. Data centers are essentially servers within Final Fantasy XIV, and as you can see here, they're split down into North American, European and Japanese. There are two data centers in North America. There's one called Ether and one called Primal. There's one in Europe called Chaos, and there's three in Japan named Elemental, Gaia and Mana. Pick whichever one you like. However, obviously if you're in the European region, you're going to want to pick Chaos. Same as if you're North America, you're probably going to want to pick Ether or Primal. It's all to do with ping, where the servers are physically located. Very recently the European servers got moved from Canada, I believe it was, to Europe. So Europeans playing on European servers are a good idea. So anyway, pick whichever one, it makes no difference. And it's going to connect you to the data center. Now, I obviously already have characters on the data center, so we're going to go through making a new character anyway. So here we go. When you first click new character, it may ask you to load appearance data. If you've happened to play the game before and you've got appearance data saved, clicking this button will let you load what that character looked like. On my first account I had appearance data from the original release of the game before A Realm Reborn came out. But however, we won't need that here, so let's click OK. So again, it's going to dump you into character selection. And here we go. Races. Now, I really need to tell you guys, races have a certain starting stats which really play no bearing on power level later on in the game at all. You can be a big beefy dude mage, you can be a tiny little warrior. It makes no difference at endgame, or the difference is so minute it is not worth agonising over. Honestly, pick something you like the look of, as you'll not be worse off for picking the wrong race. I'm using air quotes for that, by the way. The wrong race, you get it. Anyway, so the races and the quick descriptions are, we've got Hyurs. Now, Hyurs, for all intents and purposes, are your humans from other games, okay? Jacks of all trades. Generally, you look pretty good in gear. Yeah. What I will add is each race has a sort of sub-race associated with them, which changes their appearance slightly. But let's have a quick look at Hyurs then. So if we go to here, you can either be a Midlander or a Highlander. So the Midlanders are more, you know, normal-sized humans, whereas the Highlanders think sort of maybe Viking-esque or Scottish, sort of larger, slightly more rugged-looking. You can see the body difference between the two. Okay, let's go back. Oh god, I don't want to be one. I want to change that again. So you can be female as well. Same with the females. They apparently can't choose. That's interesting. Oh no, clan, there we go. Again, same thing, Highlanders and Midlanders, again, looking a little bit bigger on the old sort of size front. Then, the next race we've got are the Elves. Elves are your fantasy elves in Final Fantasy, basically. So if you're used to playing an elf, that's these guys. I will just say, they have a cute little nickname in the game of giraffes, because if you look at the length of these guys' necks, they are pretty huge. So the Elves also have a clan. You can either be a Wildwood or a Dusk White, and it just basically changes your sort of skin colour a little bit. Not too much there. And we'll look at female. So, not as drastic as the Midlander and Highlander for the Hyurs, but still, a significant change. Moving on are Lalafels. Lalafels are your gnome-like, halfling-like, small, little, tiny race, which, yeah. I'm not personally a fan. They walk without knees, which kind of puts me off. But again, they've got two different sub-races. So we've got the Plainsfolk and the Dunesfolk. It doesn't really change a lot with regards to these guys. So pick what you like. Just like the Elves, Lalafell have a cute little nickname of Potato. I'm not actually sure where that one came from. I'd probably have to do some research, but Potato. We're then going to move on to the Makoto. Now the Makoto are cat people. They have tails and ears. And you have both male and female. So if you want to be a female cat person, then that is available to you right here. Two different sub-race clans as well. We've got Seekers of the Sun and Seekers of the Moon. Kind of changes sort of the hair colour and skin colour, but nothing drastic. We'll have a look at the males real quick. So there's obviously a lot more customization to it than just this on the race for now, but we're just covering the races. Moving further on, the Rogadin. The Rogadin are the big race, basically. Most games have a big race, and Rogadin are the big race for Final Fantasy XIV. Yeah, and the females are pretty big themselves compared to other races. In fact, you don't really see many female Rogadin around. The two clans are the Sea Wolves and the Hell's Guard. Changes things slightly between the two. And for the males, there we go. Seawolf and Hellsguard. I actually started my character originally as a Rogadin, but I race changed him later on to be a Hyur for my own reasons, but there we go. And the final race, and this is the one that was added in the Heaven's Ward expansion, are the Ulra. Now the Ulra are basically dragon people, as I like to call them. They have little dragony tails and horns on their heads. Same for the females. The females are much, much shorter than the males. But same thing, sort of little horns, little tails. And again, there are two clans for these guys. You've got the Ryan and the Zayla. The Zayla are sort of more dark looking as you look at them, and the Ryan are lighter looking. Let's go for the males. And here we are, Zayla and Ryan. Very, very cool looking. I do like the way that the Aura look. Okay, so let's just pick a Zayla Aura. Once you get through this, you have all the myriad of sliders you've got that you'd expect in most games. You've got height, skin color. So, for example, if I like the sound of the Zayla, but I wanted a different skin color, I could make myself, a little bit lighter in skin tone or darker in skin tone. You can do whatever you want. So I could, oh yeah, there we go, more human looking, or kind of. It looks a bit weird, but there we go. You can change your tail shape. So you can have different styles of tails. Obviously, this is for all Ra. Hyurs don't have tails. I believe that you can do it for Makoto as well. You can change the tail length. Just do a quick one there. You've got different hairstyles. Now, hairstyles are interesting, actually, because you can unlock more hairstyles. That's a hairstyle. More hairstyles through playing the game. So, for example, this hairstyle is unlocked by playing the game. It's not in the base game. In fact, I think a whole bunch of these later ones are. All unlocked ones. So pick whatever hair you like the look of, but there is a barbering game, so should you wish to change your hair at a later stage, you can. Hair colour's pretty unrestrictive. Pick pretty much whatever sort of colour you want, apart from, having RGB sliders, but there's a very good selection of hair colours. Face types, there's only 4. It just basically changes, different face types. And as you can see, it's changing the horns, it's changing sort of facial accessories on the aura. Jaw types, quite awkward to see these. Let's zoom right in. As you can see, it's just changing the shape ever so slightly, so you can have more pointed chin, more rounded chin. Same with eye shape. It sort of just rotates it around a bit. If I whiz up and down, it's easy to see it changing. You got iris sizes, which if I click it would help. So you can have large or small. Large or small. It's really hard to see. Like, it's very, 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 very slight. But as you can see, there's so much stuff. You've got limble rings. So limble rings on each eye. So you can actually turn these on or off for each eye. You can change the colour for each eye individually. So for example, if I turn one off there, obviously that's only going to do that eye. Same with eye colour. You can have odd eyes. So you can have heterochromia. I think that's what it's called, isn't it? There we go. Eyebrows, same deal again. So just go through all these things, guys. Pick what you like. And once you confirm, it'll ask you if you wish to save your appearance data. This is just so if you wish to remake the character again later on, maybe you didn't like one particular thing, but you'd completely customise the rest. After you get in game, you notice, oh, the tail's wrong. Well, now you can just save your appearance data, and you could just go and remake. Load the appearance data, change just the tail. So I'm going to say no for now. Now, ask you to pick your birthday. This again has no impact on the game whatsoever. As you see, it's split down into astral and umbrals. These you can kind of equate to January to December if you really want to pick your own birthday. But I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to pick that one. Picking your god. This has no bearing on anything whatsoever at all. So just if you're into roleplay, pick one that has the description you kind of like the sound of. We're just going to go for Oshon the Wanderer. I think that's what he is. Right. And here's the big of it. The classes. Before we go too deeply into this, the main thing I need you to remember is that every single character that you make, so your character that you make can be every single class in the game. There's no need to make alts. You can do it all on one character. Obviously, you can't do it all at the same time. You can only be one class or job, as it later is, at a time. But you can do it all on one. And it's because the game actually tracks your levels of all your classes and jobs separately. You'll hear the term job more than classes because that's what advanced classes are called in Final Fantasy XIV. Starting around level 30, and that does depend on starting class, you'll undertake a quest that morphs your starting class into a fully powered job. But we'll go through that later on. But before we discuss all these different starting classes, and as you can see we've got magic and war, let's just talk about archetypes or roles, particularly if this is your first MMO. If you're not familiar with the Holy Trinity as it is currently, the current trinity of classes are tanks, healers and DPS. Tank classes are the frontline fighters, and your job, if you're a tank, is to hold the attention or aggro of everything that your group's fighting. You may have some hard-hitting skills or abilities and also abilities that enable you to reduce the damage you take. Healers are a little bit more self-explanatory than that. Your role in the group is to ensure that your group lives through the encounter, as well as put out some damage of your own when time allows. Just because you're a healer doesn't mean that your damage is crippled. Some healers have very potent offensive capabilities and AoEs and things like that. DPS roles stand for damage per second roles, and basically they're just the damage dealers. Okay, it's their job to make all the enemies reach 0 hit points as fast as possible, and that's essentially it, while staying alive as best they can. You still need to avoid damage as a DPS role. Now that we've established what those roles are, let's talk about the starting classes you can choose. So the first up we have it's Gladiator, which is the one it's on, which is why it wasn't changing. So let's change the job to its job attire. Look at that. Wow. So Gladiator is one of the initial 2 tank archetypes, or archetypes. Traditional sword and board tank, as you can see. Let's put him in a different pose. Oh, look at that. Sorry. Basically, they have strong defense, and they later morph into the paladin job. Very dependable tank, guys. If it's one of your first tanks, you can't really go wrong with a Gladiator going into a paladin. Okay, next on the list is Pugilist. Pugilist is a melee DPS job centered around martial arts. You have positional attacks and stances which are used to augment your abilities. They later evolve to become a monk. I think they are the melee DPS job that has the most positional requirements for all of their attacks, either rear or side. So if you're into the whole martial arts thing, then Pugilist is for you, and it becomes a monk, and you get to punch things and move very, very quickly while punching. You increase your attack speed. Marauders are the other tank archetype, and basically they have higher hit points than the Gladiator, but they use a 2-handed axe to tank with. They later become a warrior. Now, warrior is actually my main role that I play, and all I will say is they have higher hit points due to, obviously, not being able to block attacks. They can parry, and you can mitigate through mitigations, however, you hit things with an axe. They're a very, very potent tank, still equally usable as a main tank in any section of the game, put out decent damage as well. So, all in all, very, very fun class. Lancers. Now, Lancer is a melee DPS role that uses a polearm and jumps, basically. It jumps in the air, doing different types of jumps, to deal strong single target damage, and they later become the Dragoon. So if you've played Final Fantasy games in the past, this is the Dragoon. Less positional requirements than the Monk. However, some different sorts of mechanics to keep up on. Their AoE is better than it was in the past couple of expansions, well, in the last expansion at least. However, single target damage is where they're at, as well as some group utility. Archers are the first ranged physical DPS job that we're gonna find, and as you can guess, they do damage from afar, being a ranged DPS job. Be aware, this class does become Bard later on, not an Archer. So you end up having a myriad of support abilities alongside your DPS, but it isn't inherently a weaker DPS job. So if you're looking for a ranged DPS class that just uses, just wants to shoot things, not really worry much about the utility side, Bard's probably not for you, and it's probably not what you're expecting, but there is a job that may fill that role. However, Bard is very strong and very fun. So don't discount it just because of, what you've heard here. We're now going to move on to the magic classes, of which at the start there are 3. So we'll start off with the Conjurer. The Conjurer is the only class you can choose at the start which is designated as a healer. It has very strong direct and party heals alongside decent single and AoE damage abilities. It becomes the White Mage at level 30. For all you MMO veterans, White Mage is essentially your Holy Priest from Warcraft, or your just general healer from any other game. It has decent heals, heal over time, does good damage, has pretty much the right tool for each situation to get out of your party out of the problem situation they might be in. So there you go, but it's the only class that can start as a healer. However, we'll get onto it shortly. Arcanist can also become a healer later, but we'll talk about Thaumaturge. Thaumaturge, if you're familiar with Final Fantasy setting, this guy is a black mage, but for anybody else, it's a wizard. You throw fire, ice and lightning spells to devastate foes, and you later turn into a black mage at level 30. Has an interesting mechanic where you balance your stance that you're in depending on what spells you cast, and your stances do different things for you. If you're in fire stance, it increases your damage and mana cost of your fire spells, while decreasing the cost of your ice spells, and if you're in ice stance, it regens your mana for you. So it's very you don't really depend much on mana in this job because you can recover it yourself. However, they are in the past they've been very stationary job. It's a basically standstill and turret sort of job. They've been given more movement-based abilities, or abilities to help them move around the battlefield now in this last expansion, which is helping greatly when doing newer content where you've got to move a lot. Lastly, to discuss on the initial class you can pick is Arcanist. Now, Arcanist is an oddball class, but only due to how the class morphs at level 30. The Arcanist starts as a magical DPS class that uses damage over time and pets. However, at level 30, it becomes both the Summoner job, which carries on with the damage over time spell with pets, and Scholar, which is the second healing job available in the game. And Scholar again uses a pet to augment healing, as well as having its own healing abilities, mainly revolving around shielding damage on allies, a little bit like a Discipline Priest from WoW. However, you can't discount its single target healing. It's still good. However, please note there are 6 more jobs you can play as, but they are gated behind certain requirements. First of these is the Rogue. The Rogue is actually gated behind completing another class's level 10 quest and having access to the armory system. This class is basically another melee DPS which uses some positionals for damage as well as limited access to stealth. This later mutates into the Ninja. The class starts in the city-state of Limsa Lominsa, so if your intention is to get Rogue as fast as possible, start as a Marauder and race to level 10. As this is a new player guide, I will not be giving out a massive rundown of the remaining 5 classes, as you need to be level 50 and have completed certain story missions to unlock them, but for brevity's sake they are the Machinist, the Astrologian, the Dark Knight, the Red Mage, and the Samurai. Once you have picked the starting class you're happy with, click on Proceed and you'll be presented with the next screen where you can actually choose your server and data center, if you haven't selected that already. So we're on the Chaos data center, which is right, that's the European one. Now as you can see, you've got different worlds here with different icons on. So let's talk about Zodiac. Zodiac is actually greyed out right now. What this means is it's currently not accepting new players. And what it means by not accepting new players is it's not accepting new players at this very moment. as in this very time that this minute and hour that I am currently recording this video, because there's too many players on the server. Later on in the evening, there might be not enough players on, and you can make a character. So that's what that means. The icon next to that is the number of characters that you have on that server. So I currently have 4 on Zodiac. And the last icon is the key one for any new player. This is the indicator that there are EXP bonuses on that world, because generally those worlds are undersized. What this EXP buff does is pretty much double the EXP you earn from anything, quests, mobs, everything, to help you level up quicker. I believe you also get some bonuses for hitting certain level thresholds within the game. I would recommend rolling on one of these lower level servers or lower pop servers as a new player with this buff, just to help you get through the initial grind of content, because there is a lot of content in this MMO. It's been out a few years now, and their stuff to get through is going to take some time. So I would advise any server with this buff. And I believe this buff lasts until you hit level 60 on a character. On a job, sorry, and then that job is now locked out from the buff. However, should you change to another job which has not reached level 60, you'll retain the buff. So choose whichever server you want. Now, for the sake of this, I'm going to have to choose Louisoix, and it's going to ask you to put the first and last name of your character. Now, you can have the same first name as somebody else. However, you can't have both the same full name and surname, because obviously the way tells work and mail works, it uses your first and surname. So for the sake of this, we're going to call ourselves Borgio, and we're going to call our surname Hi YouTube. Okay, quite simple. And then you confirm, and it will check if that name's available, and if it is, which it should be, there we go. It's going to ask you if you want to begin a game. Hopefully, guys, that's given you some sort of guidance into the starting up and creating a character within Final Fantasy XIV. We'll be covering something else in the next part. Hopefully this has been some help to at least choosing something. Be aware, class isn't locked down. You can change classes at any time in game, and we will go through that. Race changing slightly more difficult. There is a way to do it once for free in game, and then after that you'll have to pay real money. However, races don't have an effect on stats, really a big effect on stats. And if you really wish to change, you're really unhappy, you can either re-roll or just pay I don't think it's that much money to re-roll your race. So, until the next time, guys, I'm Borgio. I'll see you guys next time.